My sports reporters, well, we got fallout from last night's victory, but all is not well in the Indiana Fever fandom community, particularly the Caitlin Clark community, because even though they got a win last night, you got a lot of people that are still not happy. And they're still not happy with the brand of basketball that this team plays and how Caitlin Clark is being used. By the way, boy, that pick and roll, come on. I mean, it's such an easy.
Did you catch that? Did you see Stephanie White, the Indiana Fever head coach, look straight into the camera and tell every fan who pays good money to watch Caitlin Clark to just sit down and shut up? It is like she is telling the people who fund the team to stop complaining. Fans are fans for a reason, right? It is like she is reading a guide on how to ruin a franchise in 3 easy steps. What is up, everybody? I am Dre Fiber, and you are locked into Street Hoops, the only channel that keeps things completely unfiltered for the fans. Today, we are digging into what might be the most frustrating coaching situation in professional basketball right now. Stick around for this. Because here is the ugly truth that nobody in the mainstream sports media is brave enough to say out loud. The Indiana Fever have an $8 problem. Not 800, not 80, just $8. And that price tag is not just a number. It is the market's verdict on what Stephanie White's brand of basketball is actually worth to the public. Let us start right there, because that number needs to really sink in for a second. According to secondary market sites like Vivid Seats and TicketSmarter, resale tickets for Fever games in early 2026 had floor prices as low as $7 or $8. That is the cost of a sandwich to see a professional game in the Caitlin Clark era. The same Caitlin Clark who, back in 2024, led the Fever to the top of the WNBA in attendance, averaging over 17,000 fans per game at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. That same superstar player, that same franchise, and those same loyal fans. Now you cannot even give these tickets away. The Upper Bowl at Crypto.com Arena for a recent Sparks game reportedly stayed closed because nobody showed up. With only 12,000 out of 19,000 seats used, that is not just a slow night at the office. That is a 7,000 seat warning shot across the bow of the entire Fever organization. Now look, I want to be fair here. I always aim for balance. Is the ticket price collapse entirely Stephanie White's fault? Probably not. Of course not. It is early, and Caitlin Clark only played 13 games last year because of that tough injury. Fans are anxious, which is understandable. The WNBA season is short, and casual viewers sometimes take time to return after a star's injury. But here is the part that makes this situation totally inexcusable. The part that makes those $8 tickets a loud signal, not just a blip. The Fever's head coach started the season by publicly announcing, almost proudly, that she planned to take the ball out of Caitlin Clark's hands this year. Let that sink in. She actually announced it. According to ESPN and other major outlets, Clark herself talked about this new off-ball role during the team's media day back in April. To paraphrase, she expected to play off the ball because bringing it up 94 feet against full court pressure is physically exhausting. It is a lot of work. Listen, I am not throwing Clark under the bus for being honest about her body after a brutal year of injuries. I get that. But here is what Dre Fever really needs you to understand about this coaching choice. There is a massive difference between Caitlin Clark needing to conserve some energy and Stephanie White turning that exhaustion into a team philosophy. There is a clear distinction between managing a star player's minutes and building a whole offensive system around keeping her away from the ball. And based on everything fans have seen in these early 2026 games, they strongly believe that White has gone way too far in that second direction. Because look at what happened in that Sparks game. Fever fans saw it live. Clark came out in the first quarter and was absolutely cooking. The Fever were flying up and down the court. Clark was getting great pick and roll looks with Aliyah Boston. That 2-woman game gives Clark better shots and puts massive pressure on the defense because of Boston's elite ability to roll to the rim. Swish Appeal noted it too. The Fever looked like a completely different team. They were fun. They were dangerous. Clark finished with 24 points and 9 assists, leading to an 87-78 win. By any measure, that is a solid box score night. The Fever grabbed a road win in game 2. That is good, right? Sure, except the people watching did not leave happy. They felt like 90% of their meal was snatched off the table before they could even taste it. Because the moment the second quarter started, the tempo just died. Those pick and roll sets just vanished. That extra pass mentality White loves, which fans have hated since day one, came creeping back into the game plan. And by the time the game reached those critical high-stakes moments, there were long stretches where you had to ask yourself, is this team actually running plays to maximize the best player in the sport? Or are they just winging it and hoping for the best? Look, I will give you my personal take on this mess. Something is deeply wrong when the franchise player, the one who fills the arena, has to work so hard just to get a look that it seems like she is battling her own offensive system. It is painful to watch. According to Sports Illustrated's coverage of that Valkyrie's loss in July 2025, right before that groin injury ended, Clark's season for good, fans on social media were absolutely furious after that specific game. One user slammed the strategy, calling it an everybody eats buffet that only muddled easy plays and robbed Caitlin Clark of any open looks. Another fan put it simply, hand Caitlin the ball, run some screens, and let the defense try to figure it out. Simple, brilliant, yet seemingly impossible for Stephanie White to pull off with any sort of consistency. Let us look at Stephanie White directly. She deserves a much closer inspection than most are giving her, and I mean that as a critique. Athlon Sports reported on this back in early May of this year. White appeared on ESPN Women's Sports Now and faced a direct question about the fan outrage regarding her off-ball offensive strategy. She claimed fans just want to see their stars play like they always have, calling it a unique challenge that no other coach faces. She acted like the only logical adult in the room. She acted like fans paying for seats and jerseys are just too blinded by their emotions to grasp what she is doing. Now, this is where Dre Fiber tells it like it is. That explanation is technically correct, but it is also incredibly out of touch. Look, Stephanie White does have valid basketball reasons for some of these decisions. After Clark only played 13 games in 2025 because of multiple injuries, there is a real conversation about load management and player fatigue. Caitlin Clark admitted at Media Day that running the point 94 feet against constant full court pressure every single possession is physically exhausting, and she needs another ball handler. That is a reasonable thing to say. That is an athlete being smart about her body. But here is the problem. This is the exact point that White avoids every time she sits down with the media. You can play Caitlin Clark off the ball strategically to save her legs. That makes total sense in a long season. But building your entire identity around a system where the league's best offensive playmaker cannot even function, that is a disaster. Then telling the fans who notice the struggle that they simply do not understand the game of basketball, those are two entirely different situations based on everything we have seen during these first few games. Between what we see on court and the $8 resale ticket prices, the fans believe with real evidence that White is failing the star. While we are on the subject of fan beliefs, let us address the obvious issue, the pick and roll. This is not some complex argument. This is not an advanced analytics debate that requires some fancy degree in sports science. The Indiana Fever have Caitlin Clark, one of the most lethal pull-up shooters in the league, who averages 8.5 assists and set the all-time single-season rookie record. They also have Aliyah Boston, a 3-time All-Star forward who is an elite pick-and-roll partner because she reads the role and creates space so well. She creates space and finishes inside. When they run that 2-woman game with Boston screening and Clark threatening the 3 or driving, the defense simply has no good answer for it. Defenses either go under and Clark shoots, they hedge and leave Boston open, or they switch and leave a small guard on Boston in the paint. There is no easy fix. Yet, game after game, this winning action is not the foundation of the offense like it absolutely needs to be. Instead, as many fans have pointed out during this early season slump, the Fever are stuck in a cycle. You see way too much passing for the sake of passing, without any real purpose. The rotations and lineups do not seem built to highlight Clark when the game is actually on the line. Fans on Newsweek put it bluntly, White is running outdated plays and refuses to put Caitlin Clark in the position she was born to play. One commenter even said the entire coaching staff should be fired immediately. Another fan wrote that Stephanie White would go down in history as the specific coach who ruined the biggest moment that this league has ever seen before. That is dramatic, but it comes from real frustration. That anger is showing up in one place you cannot hide: the ticket resale market. When sites like Vivid Seats have Fever tickets for $8 and TicketSmarter shows prices around $11, the market is speaking loud and clear. Markets do not lie. They do not have agendas. They do not care about coaching theories or injuries. They only show what people will actually pay to watch. Right now, a huge part of the Caitlin Clark crowd is looking at this team and deciding they can find better ways to spend $8. Now, let us talk about something being ignored in the mainstream media, and that is Caitlin Clark's actual three-point shooting numbers. Because if one stat proves something is fundamentally broken within the system, it is this. It isn't just one rough night or bad luck. This is a deep, agonizing slump for the most gifted distance shooter we have ever seen play this game. Fans and commentators see it, and those 2026 box scores prove it. Clark's efficiency from beyond the arc has simply fallen off a cliff lately. To be fair, she is only 2 games in. ESPN reports she's still recovering from a brutal 2025 injury cycle, and she's currently playing on a strictly limited 30-minute plan. Context is key, but something feels physically wrong. The rumors about her hip, back, and groin issues aren't just fan noise. They're starting to look like a very real problem. Remember, this is a player who only logged 13 games last year because her soft tissue kept failing. Tracing these issues back to that violent Marina Mabrey collision, the one where she hit the floor hard, isn't a conspiracy. It is a logical look at the physical toll of the game. This is a serious question that any professional sports medicine expert would have to address. When an elite athlete takes a massive hit to a vital area and then suffers recurring injuries right there, the connection is impossible to ignore. Even Stephanie White, to her credit, hasn't been shy about discussing it. She admitted to Chicago City Sports that the team is deep in the lab fixing Clark's biomechanics. Basically, they know her movement patterns need some serious corrective work. White noted that young stars often hide bad habits with raw talent until a major incident exposes the flaw. That is an incredibly insightful thing to admit. If her physical foundation was already shaky and playing full court point guard is as draining as Clark says it is, why are they still making her grind through the mud on every single possession instead of helping her? Why stick to a coaching philosophy that forces her to do all the heavy lifting herself? Why not build a system that actually supports her and makes the game easier? Let's step back and look at the big picture, because the stakes for this franchise couldn't be any higher. The Fever averaged over 17,000 fans in 2024, leading the entire league. Ticketmaster records show these are numbers the Indiana franchise never even dreamed of before Clark arrived. Before she walked through that door, the Fever were an afterthought. Frustrated fans said they couldn't even sell out a local high school gym. She transformed them into the hottest ticket in all of sports. The league's TV deals, every sponsorship deal, every headline, and the WNBA's entire climb into the mainstream happened because of what one 22-year-old from Iowa did on that floor. Everything changed for the sport because of her. Now we see $8 tickets. It's not because she's missing. She's back and healthy following an intensive recovery process detailed in a recent ESPN profile. It is not a lack of talent. They kept Aliyah Boston on a big deal, brought back Kelsey Mitchell, and added more weapons. On paper, this roster is stacked. The reason tickets are $8 is because the fans who sparked this boom are actually watching the games now. They're watching how Clark is being stifled and used. The offensive system is the exact opposite of what made this team a must-watch phenomenon last season. That falls on the coaching staff. That falls on Stephanie White. I want to be fair here because the truth is always more complicated. Stephanie White is a good person. She isn't trying to fail on purpose. She managed a winning record without Clark in 2025 and pushed the Aces to 5 games in the playoffs. That is impressive work. Yahoo Sports reported it. White has spoken about the pressure on Clark, saying she hates seeing a kid who loves basketball being used like a pawn in everyone else's agenda. That sounds like a coach who really cares. She clearly cares for her player, but that is only half the battle. Caring and winning are different. Fans selling $8 tickets aren't saying she is a bad person. They are saying she might not be the right person for this specific job. Maybe she's just the wrong coach for this particular moment. Look at her preferred system. The slow pace, the equal touches, and the refusal to let Clark just dominate 1-on-5, it simply doesn't work with what the fans want to see or what Clark is actually capable of when she's unleashed. There is one last thing to discuss before we finish up this story. It's the quiet undercurrent that is fueling all of this ongoing coaching drama. The failed off-ball experiment with Aliyah Boston. Boston has become almost invisible on offense lately. Based on the film and fan reviews, this new system has made her a non-factor on the court. Boston is a $6 million star and a former Rookie of the Year. She is easily one of the most dominant post players in the league. She's a master of the interior with soft hands and a post game that should make every WNBA defender absolutely miserable. Yet under Stephanie White's rigid system, all that star talent is basically just left to wither away. Yahoo Sports reports that Boston averaged 15 points and over 8 rebounds in 2025, leading the offense while Clark recovered. She was elite. Exactly the powerhouse player the Fever needed on that court. But when the play calls prioritize off-ball movement over feeding stars like Caitlin Clark, elite talents like Boston end up trapped in no man's land. That iconic Clark and Boston two-man game is missing. Those crucial post entries she needs, they are just not happening for her anymore. And the result is an athlete who, despite her massive contract and talent, just floats on the perimeter. She touches the ball too late to help, watching every possession die in a fog of extra passes and a slow shot clock. Here's the most ironic part of the whole situation. Indiana might actually be using a scheme that manages to fail both of their premier offensive stars at once. Every pro analyst agrees that the pick and roll between Clark and Boston is the highest value play in the entire Fever playbook. When it clicks, when Clark draws the defense and finds Boston rolling, or when Aliyah pops to the elbow to open a lane for Caitlin, it is truly impossible to guard. And this does not need some complex coaching blueprint. It just needs trust, reps, and a coach willing to say, these two stars are our best weapon, run the play. Trust them. Let the basketball offense actually breathe. That coach, sadly, seems to be missing in action. So where does that leave the team? Where does Dre Fiber stand after all of this? Here is the verdict, and I am going to be as direct as possible. The Fever are not a bad squad, and Caitlin Clark is definitely not a struggling player in the long run. She is healthy for the first time in 2 years. She just dropped 24-9 in a huge win against the Sparks. According to ESPN, she spent the whole summer doing every single thing possible to get her body into peak game shape. The foundation of a championship contender is right here, but the coaching is a documented disaster, and the proof is not just coming from internet trolls. It is coming from the actual ticket market. It is visible in Clark's own frustration when she gets tired of the same repetitive questions, as reported by Chicago City Sports, which shows a player tired of defending the same bad coaching decisions for 2 straight seasons. It is coming from the loyal fans who broke all those attendance records in 2024 and who are now all saying the same thing. We did not sign up for this. Newsweek reports that a major complaint from fans is that Stephanie White is simply not the elite coach needed to lead this team through a crucial playoff run, that her plays are outdated, and she refuses to let Clark play the position she was born to dominate in. This is not the end for Indiana. It is early in the 2026 season. There is still time to pivot. There is time for White to actually listen, not just ignore the message that $8 tickets are sending to the front office. There is time for this Indiana offense to evolve into something that truly honors what Caitlin Clark can actually do. Sports Illustrated says the Fever have everything they need to fight for a title this year. Aliyah Boston is back, and she looks hungry. Kelsey Mitchell is a total star. Clark is healthy and more motivated now. If the coaches just get out of their own way and run that two-woman game, if they let the pick and roll breathe and trust Caitlin Clark in transition, just let this woman shoot her deep threes and the Fever fan base will come flooding back. Those $8 tickets will not stay that cheap for very long. But if nothing changes, if this offense still looks like a slow committee meeting by the end of June, then those $8 tickets are going to be the kindest thing the market ever said about the Stephanie White era in Indiana. And no amount of ESPN interviews or fake PR statements for the cameras will change what the scoreboard and the secondary ticket market are already saying, already telling anyone who is watching.